Good evening and welcome to this Tuesday, October 6, 2020 meeting of the Raymore Planning and Zoning Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we call roll, let me remind commissioners, be sure your microphone is lighted green and speak into the microphone for the record. And we'll do roll call. Commissioner Wiggins.
Present.
Commissioner Bowie.
Present.
Commissioner Ackland.
Present.
Commissioner Fizer.
Present.
Commissioner Peterman.
Present.
Commissioner Urquia.
Present.
Commissioner Mansur.
Present.
And Mayor Turnbow.
Present.
Commissioner Faulkner is present. We do have a quorum. There are no personal appearances scheduled this evening. One item on consent agenda, which is approval of minutes from our September 15th, 2020 meeting. And unless any of the commissioners have concerns about the minutes, I would entertain either a motion to approve the consent agenda or a motion to accept minutes of our September 15th, 2020 meeting. Commissioner Wiggins.
I move that we approve the minutes from the September 15, 2020 meeting.
I'll second.
Okay. Didn't see who that was. Ackland or? Yeah. We'll give the second to Commissioner Ackland. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to accept minutes of our September 15th, 2020 meeting. All those in favor, raise a hand, please. 7, 8, 9. 9 in favor, none opposed, and no abstentions. There's nothing this evening under unfinished business. That will take us along into new business. One case this evening. Case 18026, Saddlebrook rezoning from R1P to R2P. At this time, I will open the public hearing on case 18026 and ask the applicant, if you're present, would you like to come forward to the podium and present your case to the commission?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, while the applicant approaches, there is a presentation he will be giving, so I will broadcast that to your terminals during the presentation.
Thank you. Okay, excuse me. Push the button.
Okay,
Microphone should light green.
Can you hear me?
And now we can hear you. Thank you.
I'd like to thank all the members for coming out to hear us out and take your time away from home. We are all appreciative of that. But my name is Doug Park, and I'm one of the developers of Brookside subdivision. Rick Fry and myself are partners, and I just wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of background as to where we come from, what we do, and how we got to where we are. Basically, I've been in the building business myself since about 1980, and I've done quite a bit of stuff around Lee Summit and Blue Springs and Kansas City. And Rick Fry and I were actually fraternity brothers back in college, and Rick had been working in Warrensburg and developing and building down there. And as time went on and things evolved, we both decided we wanted to come to the city and do some projects together. And next thing you know, we ventured down to Raymore. I think that was in the year 2000. And we decided to buy some ground, and that's when we decided to start the Brookside subdivision. And basically, we had two entities that were working in Brookside. We had one guy that was doing the single family stuff up front, and then Rick and I were doing the villas in back. And we started to eat the property up, and we started that, I think, in the year 2002. And just to show you how things have changed, when we started selling those villas in 2002, I looked up the original sales price of those homes were about $119,000. The high end was about $125,000. And today, those same homes, I think, are selling for probably 200 plus on the resale market. Which brings me to where we're at tonight, which we're currently just now finishing up the 10th plat in Brookside. I just got done putting in the last street of Bristol Drive, which connected us to the other side. And I think we just also finished up the parking lot for the walking trail, and all that's complete. I think that gives us a grand total for a little over 420 some lots in the Brookside subdivision. So it's been a good run. We're just glad to move forward, and now we've got this back 80 acres that we've had for a long time, and we're getting ready to introduce you tonight to this Saddlebrook subdivision that we have proposed. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to our engineer, and he can answer any questions that you guys might have. Sean, this is Sean Duke. I'll let you have it.
Good evening. I'm Sean Duke with Steiner Associates, 802 Francis, St. Joseph, Missouri, 64501. Okay. I don't know if it's on the screen. You got it, Jim? All right. So Saddlebrook, it is, as Doug mentioned, it is on the south there, just off Hallback Hill Road. It's not very far from the I-49 interchange there with Cass Parkway. I got it highlighted there kind of in the gray, so it's south of the Brookside development. As you can kind of see, where should I point it, Jim? So as you can see from this is the kind of the outline. North is to the top. I don't know, from me looking at it, it's on my right here. The western boundary, there's some creeks that kind of flow through the site, so those kind of make some challenges for developing this property. The western boundary has a stream that kind of flows through there, and it's got a good size floodplain through there and some stream buffers that will benefit. And kind of, so there's a good chunk of that western part of the property that's lost for development. It does make for a nice buffer to the west. We'll kind of talk about that in a little bit, but it's created some challenges, but it's also given us some opportunities for how to develop this. As you can see there, here's a floodplain map. North's on the top is kind of that outline of the creek there. On the left is that blue kind of dash that has the floodplain through there that follows the creek. This is Saddlebrook. This is our conceptual layout here. The right-hand side there, that northern end, that 4 rows of housing in there, that 600 feet is to be single-family homes. It's R1 single-family. It's going to abut all the existing single-family homes in Brookside. We did this to allow for existing single-family homes and know they will still be next to existing single-family homes. Create that buffer so whoever now comes into here is going to know what our plan is to move on forward, that you're going to have single-family in this area and then you're going to move into our 2-family to the south. We do have plans for a landscape buffer. You can see in that green area there between the single-family and the 2-family homes, there is a large green space through there to help create a natural buffer. So as we kind of look to examine this property, we did look at some of the city Raymor's own plans. There's a growth management plan that we found online, and kind of looking at some of the highlights there kind of mirrored some of the things we were seeing already ourselves, and seeing through development throughout the metro area, but also seeing as items concerning. As you look through that plan, some of the things that popped out to me is definitely one of the number one reasons that people chose to live in Raymore is because of housing affordability, the safe living environment. We're near schools, and then kind of that next thing on this slide you can see there's that whole low density, moderate density. This is a pretty common for development. You guys probably see it a little bit as you go through plan documents. We like to see stepped up zoning. Along the edge you have commercial, near highways, near busy streets. Then as you move down you go into moderate density and into a lower density. As we hear along Hallback Hill, it's a minor arterial street. It's right off 49 highway. I fully expect at some point 49, that interchange, that's going to keep building up. As Raymore builds up, that's going to develop and build into something more of a commercial center. So we looked at, doing that moderate density level off of Halbach Hill and then transition ourselves up to create kind of a buffer from that to the existing Brookside development, which is single family. So as you go through that report, kind of one of the things that, these are just a few things that popped out to me. As a goal, there was about retaining affordable housing to ensure, we have options for individuals to have a broad range of income levels, to have the ability to afford to purchase a home in Raymore. So this was a goal, set forth for how it would be good for Raymore to grow. This is something I see throughout, to have that, affordability, to have the options, to have a mixture of different types of housing available options. Everything I noticed on this one, it also talks about, expanding within. This is, as you look around Raymore, there's still some spots on the outside, but, as a spot that's completely surrounded already by residential, this is a good infill opportunity where you got existing infrastructure already in place. You got sewer, you got water, there's a water extensions have to happen for the development, but it's a good opportunity for infill to meet some of that goal requirements where you want to fill in the area. This kind of another one is all on the same line. These are all very similar, but to provide various housing options, to have something more than just the single family home that's in that $300 to $400 price range, to have some options. So that's why we looked at doing something along these lines for that two-family home, which has a little different makeup than what we have for the single family. Another report we looked at was the Building a Community of All Ages that was online. This, kind of something I've seen, and for a lot of communities on the outskirts of, the metro, there is a high number. When you look at the makeup of the city, it says there's 23% are millennials and 27% are older, over 55 in the city. So half of the city is in that market of, millennial for under 34 and over 55. So the product we're looking at here is something that could meet that demand. It has that option where you could be a single level, low entry, ADA accessible, zero, step in, to create something where you could easily have a senior facility, senior housing where you aren't worried about having steps up in the house. You have wheelchair access into the house. But at the same time, it's also meets some of the what desires you're hearing from millennials, where they want, smaller, easier to maintain, not having to take all of their disposable income and put it into a house payment, where they have some more options to travel, to go out, to have more fun, and not have everything tied up into their house. But also at the same time, it gives them that option to have a house, to have some connection to the community, to tie themselves down to it and have some home ownership, which is definitely something I can relate to in this, this report that I'm seeing throughout the metro area. As you go through that same report, as residents continue to age, I agree with this. As they continue to age, there may be a desire to downsize or seek some alternative housing, so you can move out of that large house where you raise your children in to something you can easily more maintain. This is something we've seen as we've done some of these houses where people do want to downsize, to have something that's easier to maintain, not have as much house to clean, as much house to maintain, much maintenance to a house, yard work to do. Things like that is definitely having something where you can downsize. This kind of just continues on that same point. I kind of know here that it's important for the city to continue to explore and consider options that will increase the diversity of homes that are accessible to persons of all ages and abilities. That's definitely something these houses we're proposing would have that option, to have that zero entry, everything on the same level. And it just kind of does the same thing again, where we want diversible housing. So the Saddlebrook community, as I said, that northern 600 feet is to be single family. Something that was discussed back when this plan originally came forward. The original plan was to have all two-family homes. That was brought to the Planning Commission, their neighborhood meeting, I believe, actually a couple years ago within the staff report. And then there was some discussion. I think the city met with staff, or our developer met with staff and the mayor, and they kind of worked through and discussed the options for how to do this, and that's where that 600 feet buffer came out from. that decision to create a buffer and have single-family homes in the north end that backed up to the existing Brookside single-family homes. There is a landscape buffer. There will be a landscape buffer built between there. We'll landscape with some trees to help create a natural kind of green space on the back of those houses. So it creates kind of a break, so you're leaving that single-family community and driving into the two-family community. So as I mentioned before, on the layout of the land, the western side of the site is got a pretty significant, kind of tree, creek kind of layout there that's going to be buffering that development to the west. So it is approximately, somewhere around, some areas is about 250 feet and extends out to about 350 feet. There's a pond kind of farther about the middle of the site that actually extends it out to about 500 feet. So you'll have about 500 feet from our development to the property to the west. So we'll have a significant kind of landscaped space that will buffer all those houses to the west. So that'll be it's going to be a nice amenity for our development, for the houses that back up to it, because they're going to have nice natural backyards to kind of look, to be close to nature and still have that kind of feel. And we won't really create an impact to those houses to the west because they will have that same buffer to screen their houses. Another benefit for this, Brook Parkway kind of ends right now there on the north end. This will create that connection on down to Halbach Hill, which will be another additional access point into the Brookside development, which we didn't really study the traffic for the surrounding developments or anything, but another access point through a major parkway to finish that completion will make a nice amenity to the rest of the community there. Our intention is to start construction on both sides. We mentioned this in the neighborhood meeting. We want to start on the south end and extend our way up north. That's where our water access is at too. And then we want to extend that single family on down from the north and continue that direction. So we are intending to start both directions and meet in the middle. So kind of as we get into these are the pictures here of the two-family homes we've been looking at. Sorry. We've already constructed some in other parts of town, but you've got, they're 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I'll let Martha kind of talk a little bit more about this, but basically they're 3-bedroom, 2 baths. They're about 1,300 square feet. They got options for ADA accessibility. It's got an open floor plan, single level. These are for sale homes that will be platted out to be sold. Kind of got some pictures. I'll let you kind of, Martha, if you want to jump in now and kind of talk about the houses there.
Yeah, are you going to slide through? Hi, I'm Martha Cromwell, and I represent Rick and Doug throughout the metro area. So this is one of the projects we've done together here. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhome. As you can tell, stainless steel, very nicely finished out. Decks on the back there, bedroom. It's another bedroom and a master. And then this one has the opportunity to finish out the basement as well. So this is actually a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. A few more pictures there. But our previous project that you're looking at here, we delivered 84 homes to young professionals and downsizing families. The demand for these homes far exceeded our supply. So we want to attract young professionals to Raymore, and we believe the way to do this is to provide the opportunity for affordable housing. We also want to keep the longtime residents of Raymore by providing an affordable option for them to downsize to keep them in our communities. Home ownership allows people to stay anchored in their community, being close to family and friends, and keeps the community thriving. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions for us at this time, or I know we're in the public hearing still, but.
Do any of the commissioners have questions for the developer at this time? Commissioner Bowie.
Quick question. Looking at the questions that was asked at the meeting, Good Neighbor meeting, what have you, just to follow up on 1 or 2 of those. Attendees follow, I'm looking at my package here, but the Good Neighbor Information Meeting, some comments. They will start at 163 to 188,000. Is that single-family home? Is that duplex? Is that one side of a duplex?
So the pricing of that was actually for a slab home would be closer to the 185, 190, and then if it had a basement, it'd be closer to 200 or over 200,000. So
Okay, but most of these won't have basements, right?
some of them will, and some I don't know. Sean, do you know?
We haven't gone through all the engineering to see how the grading works out, but there'll be a mixture of them.
That's cool.
Especially as some of them that back up towards the creek as it drops off to the west. We'll try to, maximize which one's going to have a walkout, because they are desired by some people, and there'll be some that will not. There'll be slabs that will be more all that one level, ADA accessible.
Okay. And the 1,300 square foot, was that one side of a duplex?
That's one side, yes.
One side of a
One
duplex?
side of duplex. That'd be, that one person's house.
Okay, and if it doesn't have a basement, they'll be on slabs, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Urquia.
On the single-family homes, is there any renderings of those, size-wise, price point?
The intent is to be similar to Brookside. We haven't really necessarily said that this has to be this type of housing. It's going to be the same type of construction and as Brookside. It's more of a, allowing that continuation of that neighborhood. So they're similar, backing up to each other. I don't know offhand what the price was. 300.
Yep, in the 300s.
Okay, and Commissioner Urquia, I'll let staff correct me if I misspeak, but I think the case before us tonight is only rezoning the southern portion of that 80-acre tract, 65 acres proposed for duplexes, and so the northern part where the single-family homes are is really not a question on the table this evening.
Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Zer concurred. Okay, so just for clarification, that's not a bad question, but that's not specifically tonight's case.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep, that's good. Thank you. Any other questions for the developer while they're at the podium?
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, you'll have to speak during the public hearing. Sorry, that was questions from the commission. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cataret,
Thank you.
Ms. Jardot, would you present the staff report to us, please?
Thank you, sir. Do you have your screens back under your control? Very good.
Yes,
Just wanted to
we're
be
back
certain.
to the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. So the applicants did present an overview of the request. I'll provide a little bit additional information. Again, specifically hearing tonight to request to reclassify the zoning of 65 acres. It'll be request to rezone from our R1P, which is our single-family planned residential district, to the R2P, which is our single and two-family residential planned district. Again, property north of Humock Hill Road to the east of the Stonegate subdivision. Rezoning does require a public hearing, was advertised for this evening's commission meeting. Want to enter into the record the notices to all the property owners, the adjoining property owners, the notice of publication in the Journal newspaper, our Unified Development Code, the application submitted, our growth management plan, and the staff report submitted to you this evening. The specific property achieved its R1P zoning back in 2006. And it was at that same time that they came forward with a preliminary plat for the entire 80 acres, which was then known as Brookside South. They did build the Brookside 10th phase, which is the most recent area where they've been building, and of course where they just made the connection to Bristol Drive. That will provide an additional 10 lots for them to build upon. The preliminary plat after the 10th phase remained valid until 2018 when it did expire. A few of the surrounding properties to the south, on the south side of Humock Hill Road, is the Prairie View of the Good Ranch development, which just opened its first phase. That property is also zoned R1P. And then another recent action was the venue of the Good Ranch which the commission considered back in 2019. This was at the corner of Dean Avenue and North Cass Plaza, where that track was rezoned to PUD to allow a townhome development to occur. It was noted about the Good Neighbor meeting that was held back on August 20th. We did have 21 residents attend that meeting. And again, in the staff report, we provided the questions that were asked and the response given by the applicant and their team. Going through some of the staff comments, again, this property has had its R1P zoning since 2006. And as Mr. Park indicated at the beginning, the property is owned by the same individuals who did the entire Brookside development. Again, this was initially planned to be an extension of the Brookside development, but they're now separating this new area. So this southern area that they're calling Saddlebrook will not be connected in any way with the Brookside HOA or the Brookside development itself. This will be a separate development. Back in October of 2018 is when the applicants initially came forward with their request. At that time, they were looking to rezone the entire 80 acres to the R2 P zoning district. They had a total of 194 units as part of that proposal. We had a Good Neighbor meeting in November. And it was after that Good Neighbor meeting, there were comments, there was information provided, thoughts shared with the applicant, and they placed a hold on the application at that time and felt they needed to look further at perhaps creating a buffer area such as the single-family area that they have done. So during that time, it was between November of 2018 and August of 2020, they worked quietly on their application. They came forward to the city in August of this year, and they came forward with the request only to rezone that southern 65 acres. So that northern 15 acres would remain zoned R1P. It still needs a new preliminary plan on it, but the zoning would remain single family. I do note again the purpose of that 15 acres, the applicant talked about it, is to create a land use buffer within the Saddlebrook development. So trying to protect the adjacent homes to the north along Bristol Drive and the Brookside subdivision. So they would do the northern 15 acres as single family and their development, and then again the southern 65 acres as the two-family homes. I provided the uses that are permitted between the R1 and the R2 zoning district. Again, the main difference is the R2 allows two-family dwellings. I want to note the only remaining undeveloped areas within the city that's designated for two-family dwellings at this time is actually within Creekmore. There is an area off North Madison Street by 163rd Street that is still reserved for two-family, but to date, anytime Creekmore has come forward with a phase, they have actually modified their master plan in that they have eliminated all their multifamily that they initially had approval for. And to date, they've eliminated all their two-family they had approval for. Don't know what's going to happen with the remaining. They have a small area for two-family residential, but if they hold to how they've been developing it, that will be eliminated as well. Aside from that area in Creekmore, there's no other land area currently in the city of Raymore available for any two-family development. Nowhere on our land use plan designates two-family, nor do we have any land zoned for two-family. The planned overlay district, that P designation that's currently on the property, if the property is rezoned to R2, they intend to maintain those same standards that are set for the property, and I identified what those are within your staff report. It creates the lot size, the setbacks, lot coverage, et cetera. So that would not change if the property is rezoned to R2. I note that the property is within the Public Water Supply District number 10 as far as the provision of water, and the applicants are aware they have to work with the water district to get water to the property. It currently is at the corner of the property on Hubach Hill Road. Since it is a change of zoning, we did submit this request to the administration of the Raymore Peculiar School District, as we sent all of our applications to them. The assistant superintendent indicated back to us, and I quote, that they're aware of the development, do not feel it would cause a negative impact on their ability to meet the needs of the students. So they've been aware of this development since the 2006, when it was all single family. And in a moment, I'll explain the unit counts between the two, as this development's very similar overall in the total number of units that would be created. I want to note, you've heard me talk about it, that the number of lots available in the city to build upon continues to decrease. In the staff report, it says 293 lots are available today for residents to come in and pull a permit on. That number is actually down to 272, based upon the activity we had in September. I do want to note, of those 272 lots, little over half of them are in Creekmore. So unless the builders are building in Creekmore, there really is limited areas right now for individuals to build new homes within the city. The conceptual plan that was shared at the Good Neighbor meeting, and was shared in your packets, overall proposes a 26 single-family dwellings and 142 family for a total of 166 units. I only mentioned that plan. It's not part of the approval tonight, but I mentioned that plan because if the rezoning occurs, that is likely to be the preliminary plan that would be submitted. And there actually, with this plan, there's only 5 more units over what the entire area was going to be single family. So they're proposing a total of 166 units. When that single family preliminary plat was approved, there were 161 dwellings in that. So that's what I indicated with the school district. Really, the number of units has only very slightly increased. But as the project engineer indicated, with no development when Saddlebrook could be located any closer to Stonegate than what they showed on their conceptual plan. Again, we have a gas main that crosses through that area on the east side of the creek, and we have the existing floodplain area as well. That's going to prohibit any development on a good share of the western half of this property. And I do note, again, if the rezoning is approved, they do have to come back with a preliminary plat. That process requires another Good Neighbor meeting. That's when we get into the specifics of lot orientation, the road networks, the stormwater runoff. All those issues are addressed at preliminary plat stage. Even if the rezoning is denied this evening, or recommended for denial this evening, and if it is not rezoned, the property to be developed for single family will have to come back for a new preliminary plat. The engineering division did submit a memorandum that talks about the provision of adequate public facilities for this development. Staff submitted proposed findings of fact on the rezoning for your consideration. Looking at the staff recommendation, again, I note while the growth management plan and the current zoning of the property is for single-family residential development, there has been a need and a demand for both single-family lots and two-family dwellings. Again, I note there's no undeveloped areas within the city that's currently zoned for two-family residential, so we can't meet that need anywhere currently in the city. So wherever any developer wants to do two-family, we're going to have to go through this process of rezoning. They are wanting to provide in this area for two-family. They feel that does not infringe upon any existing single-family. So that's why they have their own single-family buffer with the Brookside subdivision, as well as preserving the natural buffer on the west side of the property. City staff, based on those comments, we do recommend the commission accept the proposed findings of fact that are in your staff report, and we recommend that you forward this request for rezoning from R1P to R2P to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. That will conclude staff report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ketterad. All right. Next, we'll open the floor for the public hearing. The public hearing was opened at the beginning of the case. I will invite you to come to the podium. If you choose to speak at this public hearing, please give us your name and address for the record. And since this property abuts unincorporated county property, if you wouldn't mind also note whether you are in or outside of Raymore city limits as part of that address. We'd ask that you limit your comments to no more than about 5 minutes apiece to keep the proceedings moving, and if you're in support of a position that's been previously stated, if you will note that and don't restate what's already been stated, we would appreciate that. So having said that, I will ask anyone from the public, please come forward to the podium and give us your name and address for the record first.
Can I ask a quick question real quick?
Commissioner Bowie?
Do we have an opportunity to ask staff a question or no?
Once we've heard the public hearing, we'll have plenty of time for discussion.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Please come ahead. Microphone green.
Hi, my name's Charles Simmons. I live at 1024 South Madison Street. Just had a couple of questions. Out of this development, how many two-family homes as compared to single-family homes will there be?
I think I can perhaps answer that if no one minds. In our staff report for this entire 80-acre tract, the developer is proposing 26 single-family on the north end and 140 two-family dwellings on the south end. So that's actually 70 structures with 2 dwelling units per. So a total of 140 duplex dwelling units, 26 single-family detached homes.
Okay, and will all the two-family dwellings be for sale only, or will there be rentals also?
The developer has told us, and again, please feel free to correct me if I misspeak, the developer has told us in the case paperwork that they intend the units to all be for sale. That obviously does not prevent someone from buying a unit and renting it out.
Okay, and then across the road from that, they're showing single-family homes that range from $300,000 to $700,000. Now, is this going to have an impact on the value of those homes across the street? I mean, these are ones that haven't been built yet.
My first question would be, when you say across the road, in which direction?
South.
Okay, across the road to the south.
Across Hubach Hill.
And I really don't believe I can actually answer your question. Mr. Cataret or I think Mr. Cataret, would you care to, I mean, we can't really answer that question.
What I would suggest is after the public hearing comments are made, that we have the applicant address what questions are best served. This would be one that the applicant will need to answer in response after all the testimony is given.
So we're not ignoring your question, but we'll leave that for the applicant to address.
Okay, that was all the questions I had.
All right, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
I think we're going to wipe down the podium between people, so give us just a second. Thank you. All good? All right. Yeah,
There we
lighted
go.
green, thank you.
My name is Priscilla Morgan. I live at 1124 West Hubach Hill Road. That is in out of city limits. So basically, I have a quarter of that red line that's going to be butting up to all duplexes and townhomes and multifamily homes. Sorry, I'm very nervous,
Yeah.
and
You're a little bit soft-spoken, so
Sorry.
if you wouldn't mind, just stay on the microphone. Thank you. Yeah.
my grandparents, I did a crash course on this. I know they say don't get emotional at these, but it is very emotional to me. My grandparents built in 1987 the home that I now live in. They both have passed away the previous 2 years, and I am fortunate to live in that home. With that being said, my entire life it has been peace in nature, and I get that they're trying to make reserves around for that, with exception to all of the homes that have been there the longest. Everyone that lives in Dutchman Acres has been in Raymore, and there is no consideration for any of us that are living along that line to put a barrier for us, which to me doesn't make sense. They're putting a buffer between their subdivision to make another subdivision, and then putting a buffer in between that to build their multifamily homes. And I ask, why do that? If there's no reason, it doesn't devalue the homes, and it's supposed to be something that's so great, why do we need to have a buffer? Could they take and put all those multifamily homes in the middle of their subdivision and all of the single-family homes around and protect everyone to what they are accustomed to now? That's what I ask you guys.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Morgan.
Thank you all for allowing us to speak tonight. My name is
Okay, you'll have to
My
stay
name
on
is
the mic.
J.W. Brown. I live at 818 Garn Street, Raymore, Missouri. I live just north of this new subdivision in basically the first cul-de-sac right above it.
Oh,
The new street they put in is in my backyard, so that tells you how close I am to it. Yeah. If you notice, all the subdivisions around this, except for Dutchman Acres, are single-family home subdivisions. This was going to be a single-family subdivision too. We moved from Belton to Raymore 3 years ago. When we bought our house there, they're saying they're $300,000+. We just bought a house about 3 years ago for $230,000 in that subdivision. So that's not a $300,000 subdivision, so that they're like they are stating. The amount of traffic that is going to be created by this new subdivision with 140 units, you figure 2 cars per unit, they got a single car driveway, they're parking one of those cars on the street. You know, and you have twice as much traffic going up the street, racing up and down the street that they're going to put in. Yeah, it's a bigger street than usual, but that's a lot more traffic. There are areas where kids play, where they backyards butt up right to that street. You got people that are going to be flying up and down that street now that you increase the amount of traffic going up, because right now it dead ends. Yeah, eventually it'll go through, but if you only put 70 houses, that's 70 to 140 less cars driving up and down that street every day. So I'm worried because my grandkids live right across the street from me, which backs up to the street, that Brookside Parkway that they're going to extend down. And this builder built my stepdaughter's home. So I relate to what he builds. My stepdaughter owned the house for a year. They sent back a request for stuff to be fixed that was under par. That's what like you do when you buy a new house. Their response was nothing. They fixed the front door. They put a brand new door that needed to be painted. They fixed none of the other responses. Her house flooded within the first year of being built. Did they do anything? No. That goes to the type of stuff they build. And a lot of these duplexes will be bought and rented out. And the people who own it won't live here in Raymore. They'll live California, New York, and UK, because there is a house in our subdivision that is owned by somebody in the UK. And you can't get those people to fix stuff, and it's just going to start running down if it's a subpar house like this gentleman builds. So I would like to see it stay single-family homes, you know, keep what is there now in the surrounding areas on all 3 sides of it, basically, and what's going to the south of it. Why would you put multifamily home right in the middle of a single-family area is my question, and I would hope you would vote against this.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Appreciate y'all's time. Thank you.
My name's John Terrell, and I live at 1015 Seminole Court here in Raymore with my wife. We've been there 4 years. It's one of the Brookside Villas. Very happy with it, no issues. The thing I wanted to relate to you, I don't really have a question, it's just our experience in the last year. Our daughter moved to Peculiar and started renting there in December of 19, and she's been looking for a single-family home to buy in Raymore ever since. She's working with a realtor. I've been watching the websites like realtor.com. Single-family homes come on the market, and they're gone the next day. So my opinion is that we have a real shortage of single-family homes. So I don't really have a question, just wanted to relay our experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak on case 18026, Saddlebrook rezoning R1P to R2P? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing on this case. And Mr. Cataret, if you agree, would it be appropriate for the developer to have an opportunity to address public's questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you can decline, but if you'd like to address any of those questions that were raised, please come to the podium again.
To address the question regarding mixed single-family with the two-family, in our previous project, we do have single-family that butts up to the two-family, and we have not seen any change in value or resale problems, declining in the value of those single-family homes. So I just wanted to address that question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. If we have other questions, we will call you back. Thank you. All right, so the floor is open now for discussion by the commission.
I had a question to
Commissioner Bowie.
staff. I was just curious. You said that you said something quickly, and I think I just wanted you to expound on that a little bit. You said if this was not passed, this rezoning R1P to R2P, there's 161 units of single families, and if it was passed, it would be 166 total units. So there's no increase in folks one way or the other. Is that correct?
That is going off of the initial preliminary plan that they had that was just single family, showed 161 units over the entire area. And their Saddlebrook plan shows a total of 166 units.
Okay. So
Yes.
5 additional households.
Only 5 additional households,
Yep.
yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Urquia.
Yeah, Jim, could you speak to the impact of the 26 single-family units being built and not being a part of Brookside or a part of that? Is there going to be a separate HOA? I understand the idea behind the 26 units, but what kind of unique situation does that create for those 26 single-family homes that won't be then necessarily a part of Brookside, but not necessarily a duplex type?
Commissioner Urquia, before we go there, let me ask Mr. Zur, applicability of that question to the case.
From staff's position, obviously, you all can ask whatever questions you'd like and consider the weight. You are here this evening to determine the highest and best use of the property that's at issue at this particular time. For purposes of the rezoning, this one does have, in fact, the P designation to go along with it. So as that might relate to some of the benefits or some of the additional amenities that would be provided under the P designation, staff could make a response with regard to that. I'm not so sure the final outcome of how an HOA is applicable to this one or how it is applied with regard to the single-family portions are directly related to the zoning, but if staff has input with it, I'm obviously welcome to let them provide.
Just, I will note this. I made the comment during the staff report. The applicants have specifically separated this out for Brookside. So this would be its own subdivision entity. If they create an HOA, it'll be its own. There will not be a connection of any of this development with Brookside. They have their own amenities, which would come forward at preliminary plan, whether it be a pool or any other amenities. It would be solely for the Saddlebrook residents.
And that would include both the single family and the multi?
That was the understanding staff had,
Okay.
yes.
Excellent, thank you. And then one other question at this time. If the demand for multifamily, or for these, two-family home styles is in such high demand, could you possibly speak to why Creekmore then has gone the other direction and taken their 2 residential plots and changed them to single-family?
I think in talking with the developer there, Cooper Land Community, they initially came in with that plan, had several different pockets, multifamily, 2-family. I think what they felt for their development, they've done other developments across the country, and so they were kind of modeling it over after some of those developments. When they started looking at what they were creating here, their single-family products were selling well, they were doing well, and they made the conscious decision to stay with that. They have modified some of their single-family. So, for example, the Villages of Southern Hills, their very southern portion, was multifamily. They made those smaller lots. And as the commission's aware, they have a new phase coming in off of Madison Street with narrow lots. So they're trying to get diversity on their development, but just with single family. They just didn't feel, once they started, that anything beyond single family really fit their model for Raymore.
Chairman.
Excuse me?
Trying to break up
Still-
tonight, apparently.
Oh, Mr. Zer, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. I would simply qualify that response with I understand that Mr. Catterat has input and contact with the developers over at Creekmore, but with regard to a proposed business plan, it would be mostly speculation on the part of staff at this point. Staff would be able to make a response with regard to how many units are available with regard to multifamily or single family or otherwise within the city, and perfectly capable of doing so. But with regard to surmising as to what the intentions are of the individual developers, tough for us to do that.
Oh,
Any further question there? Commissioner Wiggins?
yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Catterat, at the beginning, I don't know if it was at the beginning of the presentation or what, but you made a reference to the total number of available lots within Raymore, and then you adjusted that by saying, and 1 month ago there were blank. Could you refresh my memory on those numbers?
290, 270.
Yeah, it was like 293 down to 272.
So like a 10%, roughly 10% reduction in
I
1
want
month?
to let the expert answer this.
Yeah, when I prepared the staff report, we had a total of 293 lots available.
Okay.
Just completed the report for the month of September. We did not add any new lots to that total, but we did issue permits, so now we're down to 272 lots available. And of course, that number can go up when we add new
For sure,
phases
of
in, and
course.
it goes down when we issue permits.
Okay. But is that a fairly standard rate, 10%? I mean, obviously, if a new development comes in and adds 150, then you tip the scale pretty fast. But I based on some comments and looking at some things, I know that we don't have a lot of supply of single-family homes in the area, and so I just was trying to get an idea of if that's 10% goes pretty quick, and so clearly there's a massive demand for it, but there clearly is a low supply.
Yeah, correct. And when we look at that number, those lots are all single-family lots, so we don't have any lots available for any two-family development.
Okay. Thank you.
Quick question. Oh,
Yeah, Commissioner Bowie.
looking at your staff proposed findings of fact, there's couple of them, number 1, number 5, and number 3, but specifically 1 and 5, going back to what one of the residents said, to the west, single families, it just seems like there's single families surrounding that area, and so 1 and 5 kind of talk about the character of the surrounding neighborhoods. And could you elaborate on that a little bit? The fact that there are single families all around, pretty much 3 sides of this. So if you can talk about that just briefly.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this particular area, and the zoning map that's in your staff report shows that, yes, there is single-family zoning to the north, to the west, to the south, and then, of course, in the unincorporated area of the county to the east. When staff looked at the findings, when staff looked at the recommendation, we looked at, yes, you'd be inserting some two-family zoning with single-family around it. The reason that the main reason we would support it in this case is because of the buffering that is being created. The total separation from the existing single family to the west or to the north, and then of course you have the roadway separation to the south and to the east. When you look at other examples of the city, we have a lot of them where we have two-family directly across the street from single family. Many examples in Silver Lake, in Town Center, just as 2 quick examples. So we have a lot of that, and when we look at creating new areas for two-family, we look for some type of separation, whether it be natural features or some type of actual land use barriers, and we feel that is what is established here.
What about number 3 in your findings of fact, where it says that the growth management plan identifies this property as appropriate for low density, then it goes on to say the proposed rezoning is a deviation from that. What is the reason for the deviation?
The land use plan designation for this property is single family. And so if you look at rezoning this piece of property, we're also changing the land use designation to two-family. So I wanted to be very clear of what the plan showed as single family. And again, this application or any other application in the future coming forward is going to have to be a deviation from the plan because we don't have any area available for two-family.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to continue a little bit of the discussion that Commissioner Bowie has started on the staff proposed findings of fact, and I think there are 4 of those staff proposed findings of fact out of 11 that I'd like to discuss. One of them is actually the same as Commissioner Bowie just mentioned. Staff proposed findings of fact number 3, consistency with goals and objective of the growth management plan and other plans, codes, and ordinances of the city of Raymore. We've certainly seen times when it made sense to change the designation of a property. Creekmore was one of those rather large changes, and at times where it makes sense to me to change the zoning of the property, it's generally because someone has come in with a better idea, a better plan. I'm not so sure in this case that I feel that way. So moving on, this is probably debatable, but we've already had some discussion on the change to the number of housing units. And if I look at the chart on the bottom of page 9 of our staff report, the minimum lot widths, depths, so forth are the same under R1P as R2P. Therefore, the way I look at it, the 26 single-family dwellings on the north part, not part of the question. The 140 proposed two-family dwellings on the R2, as one of the speakers from the public said, that's 142 family, where if it was R1, we would have had only 70. So there's no way that I can get around seeing that as an increase of about 70 additional housing units if we approve the R2 zoning. That adds traffic on Brook Parkway. I realize that this proposed development connects Brook Parkway south to Hubach Hill Road, but I also feel that since the bulk of Raymore is north, that traffic from this proposed development is going to go north on Brook Parkway up to Lucy Webb. And while there are no houses that directly front on Brook Parkway, I count a total of about 40 individual existing residences on both east and west sides of Brook Parkway where their lots either back up to Brook Parkway or their side yard is adjacent to Brook Parkway. So I feel like those houses would be directly impacted by additional traffic. And going to staff proposed findings of fact number 6, the extent to which the zoning amendment may detrimentally affect nearby property. I don't agree with staff proposed findings of fact. I do feel like the additional traffic from 70 additional housing units in this proposed development would detrimentally affect those roughly 40 existing homes north on adjacent to Brook Parkway, and also kids trying to cross from one side of the existing development to the other. So I'm not sure I agree with staff proposed findings of fact number 6. On staff proposed findings of fact number 8, I think I actually agree with it completely. The suitability of the property for the uses to which it has been restricted under the existing zoning regulations. Staff notes property is currently suited for uses under the current zoning regulations. So I agree with that. I don't see any reason why it could not be developed as R1 as it is currently zoned. And finally, staff proposed findings of fact number 10, whether the proposed zoning map amendment is in the public interest and is not solely in the interests of the applicant. And I simply question that. I do note staff's comments that Raymore currently has a shortage of R2 zoned land available for development. I don't disagree with that. But considering that this property has single family to the north, to the east, to the west, and to the south, I tend to agree with people who spoke at the public hearing,
Chairman,
and objected to infilling and inserting R2 into the middle of an area that's surrounded by R1. Yes, Mr. Zur.
Sorry, Chairman. From the perspective, at this point, you all don't have a motion to consider at this particular time. I think we're still in the process of answering questions from staff that you all might have. I think that Mr. Krass may well have some comment with regard to the traffic portion as well. For purposes of discussion, I'd like to request the Commission focus on, once you've got a motion to consider for that one, for the time being, if there are additional questions or concerns for staff, to focus at that point on this.
Certainly. Do you want some more? Commissioner Wiggins?
I'm willing to make a motion. However, as Mr. Zur alluded to, Mr. Krass might have some discussion. I didn't know if you...
We can hear from Mr. Krass first, of course.
Thank you. I would like to point out with regards to the transportation network that Hubach Hill Road is identified as an arterial roadway on the roadway master plan. Lucy Webb is identified as a major collector roadway. Brook Parkway is a collector roadway. As the chairman accurately noted, there are no direct driveway access points onto Brook Parkway. Neither are there any proposed with this development. The purpose of a collector roadway is to gather traffic from neighborhoods and connect it to arterials. Given the capacity of Brook Parkway, the additional traffic from 70 additional homes is statistically insignificant. Brook Parkway can probably safely accommodate over 10,000 vehicles a day in its current configuration. The traffic from 2 or 70 single-family homes or 70 additional units is insignificant with the capacity of Brook Parkway.
Thank you, Mr. Krass. Or Commissioner Wiggins.
If there's no additional discussion, I would be willing to make a motion. I would move that we do not accept staff's proposed findings of facts and recommend a denial of the rezoning request and forward to City Council.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Wiggins, second by Commissioner Fizer. Mr. Zer, watch my wording on this. It may need some work. Second by Commissioner Fizer to not agree with.
I believe that is to not accept the staff's findings of fact.
To not accept staff proposed findings of fact on case 18026, Saddlebrook rezoning R1P and R2P, and forward to City Council with recommendation of denial?
Yes.
No? Okay. Great. Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All right. The motion is to deny the case. All those in favor of the motion, raise a hand, please. 7. And we have 7 in favor of denial. All those opposed to the motion, raise a hand, please. 1, 2. And that would be Commissioner Manser and Commissioner Urquia voting in opposition to the motion. And we have no abstentions. That is sufficient to send the case on to City Council with recommendation of denial. And as is our custom, I will give Commissioners Manser and Urquia an opportunity to state their objections to the motion if they'd like. Commissioner Manser.
I'd just like to state seems like it'd be a minimal difference between single family to the two-family development when it comes to aspects of traffic, so on. I think there's a lot of speculation on cars being parked in the street and so on. It's just tough to get behind a denial for that.
Thank you. Commissioner Urquia.
Kind of echoing Commissioner Mansour there, but also adding to his comments that, and to one of the comments from the public, that there is a lack of, call it, affordable homes in Raymore, smaller homes where older folk, older couples or starting families could reside and afford to purchase a home in Raymore. I don't think, based off what I was seeing, that it would reduce the values of the homes around it, and the fact that there are no other areas that are zoned for this type of development, nor any proposals for this type of development on our plates, that these opportunities and areas to do this are going to become harder and harder to find as we move forward. And I was comfortable with what was presented. And I think it's something that Raymore needs and needs to have done right. I also think that the concern over them becoming rental properties is the same concern you can have with a single-family home. We can't control who purchases those. We can't control whether, if these were all single-family homes, they could all be bought by investors as well and rented out. So that wasn't a concern of mine either.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Urquia. All right, that concludes case 18026, and we'll move on to City Council report. Mr. Zer.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a pleasure to be able to provide the City Council report. Since the last meeting that you all had on September 15th, there has been one City Council meeting where voting and activity has occurred. From that meeting, which occurred on September 28th, there are 3 items that I would draw your attention to or advise you on. First item is under the unfinished business. It was a second reading. This was the approval of the Oak Ridge Farms rezoning from R1 to the PUD designation. This was Sean Siebert's development of approximately 23.8 acres. You all approved this on August 4th, 2020. It was read for a first reading on September 14th, 2020, and approved unanimously by the council. It was again approved unanimously by the council at the second reading. The other 2 items come from the new business, which are the first readings for the City Council. First reading for the Parkside subdivision rezoning, where at a public hearing was held. You all would have had the opportunity to evaluate this on September 15th, 2020. You approved it by a unanimous vote of 8-0, or recommended approval by a unanimous vote of 8-0. This was developer Joe Duffy's development, rezoning 155 acres on the west side of North Madison Street, south of 163rd Street. Finally, at the City Council meeting, the first reading occurred with regard to the 32nd Amendment to the Unified Development Code. Public hearing was held by the council on that evening. The 32nd Amendment references the small wireless facilities, which you all had the opportunity to evaluate on September 1st and recommended approval by 9-0 vote. I'm happy to answer any questions, and as always, I would defer to staff as well as Mayor Turnbow for anything that they think I may have missed. Thank you. That concludes City Council report.
Thank you, Mr. Zur. Mr. Cataret and Ms. Jardot, if you'd like to give us the staff report, we're ready.
Yes, sir, thank you. Just go over our calendar for a few upcoming meetings that we are going to be having. So your next meeting scheduled for October 20th. Well, we do have 3 cases for that meeting. We will consider the 33rd Amendment to the Unified Development Code. This will be a public hearing. This will be bringing back to the commission those miscellaneous items that we talked about as part of the 2020, the annual UDC review. I believe that was back in June. We'll also have a public hearing on the North Cass Plaza preliminary plat. North Cass Plaza is that land area. It is all the land area to the east of the I-49 and North Cass Parkway interchange on the south side of North Cass Parkway. So it'll be land area north of where they're currently doing the industrial development. North Cass Plaza was approved many, many years ago. That preliminary plat actually expired. They're coming back, and in essence, starting with just 2 large lots, large lot between 49 and Dean Avenue, and then a second lot on what would be the east side of Dean Avenue extended. And then as they get commercial development there, they would subdivide into lots for the commercial development. They'll also be bringing forward the final plat for that property coincident with the preliminary plat. We do not have any cases for November 3rd. Would suggest, being election day, and we don't have any cases, to cancel that meeting. But we do have a couple of meetings for the middle of November. So first is actually a special meeting of the commission. It would be annually in November. We do our joint meeting with the City Council. So this year, City Council's work session on November 16th, which is a Monday, will actually be a joint meeting, not only between the City Council and the Planning Commission. It would also include the Park Board as well as the Arts Commission. We would be meeting over at Centerview. There would be a meal provided that evening. I don't know if we'll start early. We will certainly let you know what the intent is there. The purpose of it is to provide an overview of an effort staff will be starting on a new city comprehensive plan. So the Planning Commission's role in that is, of course, as you know, at the Growth Management Plan. But the comprehensive plan is going to try to be taking into account all of our different master plans, the park plan, the arts plan, our trails plan, our land use plan, our community for all ages, et cetera. We're trying to, as a staff, we're going to go through that all those documents individually and binding them, if you would, together as one comprehensive plan. So we'd like to provide you an overview of what that would look like, how we think that would work. And get input both from the commission, the Parks Board, Council, the Arts Commission, on that effort. Unfortunately, we have a meeting scheduled for the next evening, back to back. We have a application that was filed. This would be the next step if the rezoning gets approved by City Council for the Parkside subdivision. It received a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission for zoning. Council approved it on first reading. If second reading is approved, this next coming Monday night, then they will be moving forward with the next step, which is preliminary plat, and that is a public hearing. And they do want to stay on schedule, and so that's how it fell on the November 17th meeting. So those are currently what we have active for review and upcoming for your consideration.
Thank you,
That
Mr.
concludes my
Cataret.
report.
Mr. Krass, would you like to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have nothing to report this evening.
Okay. All right, that takes us along to public comment. At this time, I'll open the floor once more for any comments from the public this evening. If you'd like to speak again, please give us your name and address for the record. And make sure that microphone is lighted green.
My name is J.W. Brown. I live at 818 Garn Street. My name is J.W. Brown. I live at 818 Garn Street. I'd like to thank all you commissioners for denying the plat at this time. Recommend denial to the City Council. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Would anyone else from the public like to speak at this time? Do you want to wait a second and Ms. Jardel will wipe down?
Sucker's cleaner than my house.
I'm not going to have any green left on.
Okay, sorry for the delay.
It's okay. Priscilla Morgan, 1124 West Hubach Hill Road, and I too would like to thank everyone for denying the request. And I would also like to, I'm not for sure, I went online before the meeting as to your statement on there's not many other opportunities. And online it's showing there's multiple that have already passed for apartments to multifamily homes in other areas of Raymore. So I just wanted to bring that up, that there are other.
If I may, if I may address that, and again, staff, feel free to correct me if I misspeak. I think what was discussed in the case this evening was that there's a shortage of specifically R2 zoned for duplexes. Yeah, I don't believe that it actually said or meant to say that there's not multifamily housing opportunities available. It was specifically saying that we do not have any other properties currently zoned for R2 duplexes for development. Ms. Cataret, Ms. Jardot, does that sound correct?
Just clarifying the difference between multifamily and duplex.
Right.
Yes, I said, I misunderstood.
Two families.
That's on me, I misunderstood.
Two families, it's a subtlety.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else from the public that would like to speak this evening? Come forward. If not, we will move on to commission member comment. And I think I will start with Vice Chair Fizer, if that's okay.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank staff for keeping us informed and giving us all our information in a timely manner. I'd like to especially thank Ms. Jardot for keeping us safe and clean here in the office or in the chambers. And that's really all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Wiggins.
Thank you, staff, for everything. Other than that, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Ackland.
I just want to thank the residents for coming out and expressing their opinions. We appreciate that. I also want to thank the staff. You did an outstanding job as usual, so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mansur.
I'd also like to thank the public and the staff for all your hard work. Thanks.
Commissioner Urquia.
Yeah, always appreciate when the public come out and give us their opinion. Mr. Zur for trying to keep me in check. Appreciate that. And staff, as always, excellent job putting it together and answering our questions.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Commissioner Peterman.
Thank you, staff, as always, and it was a good meeting. Not everything goes one way. Thanks.
Yeah. I'm probably going to confuse somebody here, but I'm going to go to Commissioner Bowie second. Next.
Thank you to residences, understanding that your voice is very important and it is heard. Thank you to staff for a wonderful job as always. I like the emails that we're getting on a regular basis to, as opposed to just the thing dropped, the package dropped off. I like the packet being in the emails as well, so that helps out a lot. Appreciate it. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Bowie. Mayor Turnbow.
Well, most of my fellow commissioners have already said what I would, and that is to thank the residents, and I want to thank also the commissioners for their great input tonight. Some good conversation, good questions. Some of them on the periphery, but we do go there from time to time. I love that conversation because everything was what's important in Raymore and what's best for Raymore, and this group always keeps that first and foremost in their minds, and I thank you for your dedication and your volunteerism. That's really all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Turnbow. I will thank all of staff, and in particular, thank you, Mr. Zer, for very helpful and timely input. They're not paying me to advertise, but I want to make a plug for the latest issue of the Planning Magazine that all commissioners should be receiving, and Mr. Mayor, I hope you get it too. So this is the October 2020 issue. It's toward the back, page 34, and the article is titled Expanding Boundaries. Okay, so it's talking about Maryland. That's a long way from Missouri. It's actually talking about issues at a county level, and whereas I think we're most concerned about issues within Raymore, but I recommend this article in particular. It's talking about trying to preserve a balance between rural, agricultural development, without stifling development. I think that's something that I see Raymore continuing to struggle with. We've obviously grown up, but as we continue to grow, and the public meetings that have been held periodically, the vision, what do you see Raymore becoming? How do you see Raymore changing in the future? And I think we struggle with trying to find a balance between all of those things that we want for the community where we live. So highly recommend that article. And unless anyone has any other comments this evening, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Arkia was the second, Commissioner Manser. All those in favor, raise a hand, please. And I have 9 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
That was fun.